G'day! Today I'm going to give my first impressions of some armor I recently acquired from, of course, the go-to site I have when trying to build budget gear, Amazon. So first thing first, something may look familiar here to those who've kind of been watching in the past and other test videos I've done with the Gun Versus series is the Globos I am wearing. Currently, this is the Lord of Battles Globos. You can find it on Amazon in both the size small and large. The one I had before was a size small, and this one, however, is actually a size large. It covers a fair bit more of the sides than the other one. This one comes almost all the way wrapping around towards the back, whereas the other one stops about midpoint of the side. It also has a much lower coverage point for the chest down below the ribs to about the navel, natural waist, especially during the medieval period where most armor had a tendency to stop. Something I've noticed with a lot of the cheaper Indian manufacturers is the less complicated the armor is, the easier it is for them to make it without any kind of flaws. This is very much similar to what a munitions grade breastplate would have been of the time period, being just plain mild steel, 16 gauge. It can take a hit as needed, but it also is light enough to where you're not overly burdened by a single piece of plate. Pauldrons, I've also got those from the same manufacturer, Lord of Battles. You saw in my video for repair what I had to do to make them properly fit so that they could actually move and adjust on themselves. And now that I got the proper arming points on my gambeson, you can actually see they better articulate with my arm as I raise them up. The only thing I have to complain about is the rondelles. They don't exactly hang quite in the right area. They have a tendency to swing inward and rest on top of the breastplate when they need to stay out inside the armpit zone between the breastplate and the pauldron. I can probably remedy that by putting another point to attach them to just above the armpit, but with enough slack to where they still move a little bit freely. Not too freely, but enough to where they can do their job and still hang loose enough where I can still articulate my arms forward and back. And lastly, this is kind of a bonus in this video, is the Fedestian longsword that I had reviewed before. I have now, hence, replaced the old plastic handle with a red oak one, and it is much, much nicer than how the original was made before. Part of why the choice of plastic was made for the sword itself was for it to be able to keep costs down. A wooden handle, surprisingly, can be a fairly complicated and time-consuming piece to make versus just an injection molded plastic. The sword's new handle is just naked bare wood at the moment. I don't know if I want to put a wrap on it or not. Kind of enjoy the feeling of just the untreated wood underhand. It reminds me very much of some of my more favorite messers that I've made in the past. The diameter of it feels just right. If I put a wrap on it, I would have to shave it down more. I made the handle using I think it is red oak. I'm pretty certain of it. It smelled about right for that when I was sanding it. Made two scales that I glued together once I cut the slot out for the handle tang to fit through. Certainly I can say that the blade itself is alone worth the price that they're selling this for. Even if you don't like the pommel and guard, it is very easy to upgrade the handle on this. I have also added a sword belt. For the buckles, I just found a set of brass buckles made by Lord of Battles as well that were a 1/2 inch wide that my saddle string fit in perfectly. I then went with Todd Cutler's method of suspending a sword. It's probably out of date for the way this equipment will be portrayed. Out of all the ones I've seen for just a simple sword belt, this is by far my favorite because of its simplicity to put together, as well as it's just very comfortable to hang a sword at the height you prefer. I've done a few suspensions in this style for different swords for friends of mine, and they also have come to like it a little bit better. So next up, you're probably curious about mobility in this style of armor. Range of motion, for the most part, I am not really that hindered by it. One thing everyone always will try to say when they see it is, well, you can't even bend over to touch your toes. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but how often do you want to be bending over in a battle to touch your toes? Nonetheless, I can actually touch my toes. The only thing limiting me at the moment is just my own personal range of motion. I'm not that flexible in the legs. Probably something I should work on. Bending forward, I'm not uncomfortable. The navel is right here on me. So what happens is I am bending at the natural waist, and the armor is not being driven into my stomach like armor that you often see made for LARP or in modern film. For my arms, I don't have very much limited range of movement. The only limiter that I have is the rondelle has a little bit of a tendency to snag on the bottom of the breastplate where the leather attaches to the back. But after my upgrade, though, for the pauldron itself, I have much better range of motion where I can even touch this shoulder on the other side of my body. Same as on this side. Another issue, is a perfect example, is a blade catch on the breastplate. Has a tendency to get caught by the rondelle as well. It could be because I don't have the armor tightened up enough on the shoulder straps. I believe I have it in the very last set of holes, so that's something that I'll need to do is punch some more holes. It sits a little bit above the navel, but that's about how a globos is supposed to fit. What's great about this style of breastplate, beyond the idea of it being just a singular piece, the way it's been made, you have a much higher range of motion than you would if you had a full set of armor. Leastways, that's been my experience with the armor I built for myself. Hopefully here in the future I can do a full proper review of it and my thoughts once I can get the legs and the helmet that I intend to wear with it finished. This armor is actually being worked on to bit by bit piece together a budget style armor for people that are getting new to reenactment and just medieval combat for things like SCA and reenactment, not Behurt. That's a little bit too intense for this type of armor being mild steel. For an individual who's just wanting to get started but has a limited budget, it can get expensive trying to get a hold of decent looking medieval armor. And bit by bit, I'll be adding to this particular set of what I'm going to probably title the Amazon armor, as so far everything I'm wearing other than the gambeson, I have actually gotten off of Amazon of all places. For ability to wear, this armor actually is very easy to get to fit just about anyone, regardless of personal body weight. If you're a big boy or just skinny guy, this armor itself for the breastplate is actually in a way adjustable. Being 16 gauge with enough force, you can flex it some, but you don't want to over flex it, or in some cases, if you're a really skinny guy, go with just the biggest version they have of it. If you're a really skinny guy, 100% recommend the small, but if you're a larger guy weighing up close to 250 pounds, you can quite easily make this work for yourself. You might have to flare out the sides a little bit, but it would give enough coverage for you to properly be covering your upper portion of body, as well as the pauldrons would work for just about anyone, unless you're a smaller guy. This armor, I can give a 100% recommendation for it, mainly because of the price point. As of currently, March 20th, this particular breastplate is unavailable on the Lord of the Battles page on Amazon. However, it does come into stock fairly often. I've seen it come in and out. When I first got the very first breastplate for this, it was actually only $80. However, since then, because of current trade regulations, the price has gone up. I would be hard pressed to find one within quality and price balance that could equal this one. There is a version of this that is definitely higher quality and does cost a little bit more, made by Zaghaus. You can find it on Bergschneider and the official Zaghaus website. That one, 100% I would recommend above this one. However, the goal, as I've stated in the past, is I am attempting to try to help new reenactors and new enthusiasts of the medieval world find armor that's affordable but functional in the way needed for events like SCA and even some reenactment, depending on the level of intensity of fighting they have a tendency to get into. So, final thoughts on this particular set of armor. I can recommend it for anyone that's got a couple $100 as their budget to purchase just the beginner's pieces of reenactment gear, SCA gear, things such as that. Cons, it does require a little bit of skill and knowledge in basic blacksmithing, from being able to drill new holes, cut out old rivets, and place new strapping, and figuring out how to place said strapping. It's not hard for someone to learn how to do. The difficult part is being able to actually get those tools to do that. I use some more advanced tools for when I first got to work on the pauldrons that a lot of people won't have, and you don't have to use those. You can easily get away with using a drill to drill out each hole individually. It's a little more difficult and not as easy to do as with a belt grinder. You can also use an angle grinder, and on the inside is where I'd recommend using that to remove the old rivets. This kind of work is easy for anyone to achieve. Don't let yourself be sold short saying to yourself that, oh, yeah, you'd have to have someone that's skilled and knows what they're doing. I didn't know what I was doing when I first started, and I still most of the time don't know what I'm doing. But nonetheless, I've gotten to a point where I can actually discern and figure out what is wrong, especially when I'm making my own gear. As is, this armor, even ready-made, could be functional for a lot of different people. Gives decent protection, and the thickness of the plate is more than enough. And even within SCA groups, there are people there that would be able to modify and resize the kit for you to what is needed for you. With all that covered, we're going to end it right there. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you want to see in the next one. Take care.